Welcome back to This Day Live, a Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. With me today, I have Professor Anthony Killer, Director, Center for International Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS, as well as Jide Ologun, a legal practitioner and national development advocate. The year 2024 is on its last legs, with a countdown to 2025 gathering steam ahead of New Year celebrations on January 1. At this time of the year, people and entities tend to take stock of major events in their lives in order to make informed choices going into the new year. For Nigeria as a nation, the journey through 2024 has been a mixed bag of the good, the not so good, and the downright absurd. Life for a great majority of the citizens has been a continuous struggle to survive the stifling circumstances of an economy in distress. For President Bola Tinubu and his team, the year 2024 has been challenging. The one which offers a vista of opportunities to continue improving the nation's economic and social standing on a global scale. That much was an underlying theme of his maiden presidential media chat which took place last week. For the incoming year, all options for a lot of Nigerians are on the table. Word in the street remains, the struggle continues. In the meantime, during that media chat with journalists from a select group of news platforms, President Tinubu said there was no going back on his plans to reform Nigeria's tax administration structure, despite growing opposition, adding that his decision was necessitated by the need to eliminate colonial-based assumptions in the nation's tax environment. Questioned about the economic hardship that arose from the removal of subsidy on petrol, the president said he had no regrets.
What's contingency? Where is it? We were spending our future. We are spending our generation's fortunes. We were not investing.
But are we
are just deceiving ourselves. That reform is necessary. I could see the smugglers fighting back. That one doesn't affect me. It affects smuggling. Why should you have expenditures that you don't have revenue for? I don't want to question people with five limousine type of vehicles on the roads. Well, we should teach management with all our programs. We have to manage our resources within our means. There's no way out that you give out fuel and allow all the entire neighboring countries.
Dan Kunle is an expert in energy sector matters, as well as a policy analyst. He joins me now. Mr. Dan Kunle, it's good to see you again. Thank you for joining me on This Live Sunday Talk Show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Abati. Compliment of the season. And
thank you.
Warm greetings to all our audiences across the globe.
Well,
thank you.
Mr. Dan Kunle, as a policy analyst, what would you say are the high moments within the Nigerian policy environment in the year 2024? And what would you say are the omissions that we ought to be reminded of?
This is a tall one, Dr. Abati, but I believe you are trying to provoke some conversations centering around the year 2024, the ups and downs, and all the challenges and all the, maybe, let's say, all the opportunities we have been able to maybe maximize in the last 12 months. It has been a very eventful 12 months. I saw that the president was still busy, President Tinubu, to justify during the media chat he had with you people, which you led. He was still justifying the reason why he needed to remove the subsidy. I agree totally with him. We continue to justify it, but we have to go beyond justification. 2024 was the year that really we can say we used to test the extent to which the economy can be put under pressure. We have really put the citizens of Nigeria have been put under very severe pressure in 2024, and it appears Nigerians have succeeded in managing through, even though there are ugly situations like the food palliative crisis in Ibadan, Abuja, and Anambra, which were very sad. My condolences to all the families that were involved. But that we now call to question whether 2024 was really a year for Nigeria to celebrate or to take a reflection and say, look, we have a lot of amendment and adjustment to do. It is one year that we must celebrate also the success of Dangote Refinery, because it's the first time since 1914 we have something that we can say that has brought Nigeria to the limelight globally, positively. So President Tinubu have 2 or 3 issues to rejoice over in 2024, and Nigerian people also must join him to do that. But at the same time, it is also a year that Nigeria went through a lot of pressure, economic pressure, hardship, social discontent. But there is hope. There is hope. There is still hope. Don't let me go into some details yet. Let me allow you to.
Well, the president said that he did exceptionally well. Yeah. And he was very confident in that interview. And he says, well, he has done very well, and particularly with food and agriculture. He says he has been to Brazil and is making arrangements to bring in over 2,000 tractors, and that in the year to come, we're going to see a lot of activity with regard to food security and agriculture, particularly as Nigerians, dying in the stampedes that you referred to as a result of hunger, as it were.
Yeah, Dr. Abati, thank you very much. It's good that the president was evaluating himself, but as an ordinary citizen, yeah, to a large extent, he has tried. His effort is worthwhile, but whether I can score him above average, I'm not sure. Yes, he visited Brazil. Yes, he's bringing 2,000 tractors. But what is the agricultural and food production philosophy of Nigeria? It's just beyond policy pronouncement, beyond tractor procurement. Nigeria, a nation, a sovereign nation that cannot feed herself, her sovereignty is already subjected to a lot of problems already. Because that means even the citizens themselves don't trust that they can survive in that country. So I think President Tinubu and the people around his inner caucus need to be able to sit down with the president and say, Mr. President, food security is not the issue. We need food sovereignty. How do we achieve food sovereignty? Since we have political sovereignty, do we have food sovereignty? How do we get the governors across the country to buy into this food and agricultural production philosophy? This is what he needs now. 2,000 tractors for 200 million people with a huge land mass is just a drop in the ocean. But that is not even the issue. The issue is how functional will all these tractors be put into use? Where are the skilled people that will utilize it? So we need to evaluate. I'm an ordinary citizen, but if I'm to subject some of these policy issues and activities around food sovereignty to a serious interrogation, I will say, Mr. President, you have a work to do with your team. And I see 2 governors, about 3 governors in Nigeria that are standing out to support him with the initiative they have taken. I think Bago is doing very well in Niger. He's the governor that is leading agricultural revolution in Nigeria. And I'm sure the president is very impressed with him. And Lagos State Governor, who is now, I can call him the market-led governor, because he's now leading agricultural produce market arrangement. He's building the largest food storage logistics center in Africa. Between Ikorodu and Ekpe, I have visited there twice. It's incredible. You will not believe it. So I think this governor, and Borno governor, if he's given a chance with all the challenges he's having with Boko Haram and bandits, Borno governor will have done very well, because the current vice president of Nigeria, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, lay a solid foundation for agricultural revolution in Borno. But all the interruptions there also may not allow us to see a positive and aggressive result. But we must give it to Zulum. He's trying within that setting. So I think the president needs to sit down and get the other governors engaged that have good landmass and can still manage with the insecurity and challenges to produce sufficient food for the country so that we attain food sovereignty. The Minister of Agriculture, as it is said today, is supposed to focus on policies, policy instruments, fiscal regimes that can create enough enabling environment for large-scale agricultural mechanization, and not this primitive subsistence agricultural practice that I inherited from my parents in the village
Mr. Kunle.
So Kunle, I think we need, yes.
Mr. Kunle, let's go back to your sector, the energy sector. Now, you've mentioned Dangote Refinery as a major achievement in the year 2024. But beyond oil and gas, beyond Dangote Refinery, there's still this concern. I think I read a piece about what Farouk Perogi calls the Buharinization of the NNPC by President Tinubu. Do you agree? When President Tinubu and his team say, in fact, what they are trying to do is to transform that sector. And then two, power. A lot of developments in the power sector. The grid collapsed on the average of, once a month. And yet we're told that, we're talking to Siemens, we'll get it right. Did we get it right with power supply in 2024?
Yeah, Dr. Abati, this is why I feel 2024 was redo with a lot of challenges. For us to have national grid collapse 12 times in a year already called for the sacking of the entire management of the TCN. But having said that we have a deficit of leadership and managerial capability in TCN, in the Transmission Company of Nigeria. The entire power sector value chain in Nigeria need to be reviewed. The deep reform we expected from President Tinubu, I am not seeing it. That's why it's paining me that it's like President Tinubu, after grabbing this power, because he grabbed the power as he himself described it. Some of us were so optimistic and passionate that this guy was going to turn around 360 degrees. But 18 months, we still have not seen that deep reform in the power sector, in the oil and gas sector. That is why you see this pedestrian conversation now. If Professor Perugi is very brilliant and very, very precise in whatever he says, he only made a suggestion that, look, if you are going to do restructuring, human capital restructuring in NNPC, you must have a balance of the geopolitical structure of Nigeria in the management structure of NNPC. This was his suggestion. He was only alluding, I read it, he was only alluding to the tendencies of maybe portraying President Tinubu in the same way many people portrayed Buhari during his 8-year regime. So I don't know why NNPC will react to Professor Perugi when NNPC Limited is supposed to focus on oil and gas production and what we can call performance. But they dabble into something that has to do with board and shareholders. NNPC management has no responsibility to respond to Perugi at all, to Professor Perugi. So it was very wrong. That suggestion of Professor Perugi was a suggestion to the shareholders and to the president, who is the overall boss of Nigeria. He can hire and fire. It was not to the management of NNPC. NNPC is a limited liability company. They have board and they have the shareholders. The shareholder is Minister of Finance and Minister of Petroleum. So it was very wrong for NNPC management to jump at responding to what Perugi suggested. Perugi was just being very, very suggestive to Mr. President. And is somebody we cannot wrong in this country. We must listen to wisdom and wise counseling. People react negatively. It's like me here now. People will say, oh, who is this Dan Kunle? He's always talking. Who is he? Who is he representing? But I have a reasonable knowledge to talk in this country. And even by age and exposure, I can talk on any issue in this country. So why should people just, yes, I can say something you don't like. Okay, you go and say your own. So I think the energy sector, Dr. Abati, particularly power, it was woeful. The upstream sector of the oil and gas, if you give me chance, they have done relatively well, the upstream, because the regulatory commission, the upstream regulatory commission was able to pull through the bonga for Shell, which is about $5 to $6 billion investment in the last 5 years, average of $5 billion per year. So it is a very good one for our offshore development. And I can, to a large extent, I will credit the upstream regulatory commission and Mr. President and the energy advisor to the president, because they have been, in 2024, they have been able to deliver Bonga, they deliver Seplat ExxonMobil, and finally they have delivered Shell Renaissance. Somehow, we should give it to them. They have done a good job in 2024. Oh. Having said that, let's go back to the power sector, Dr. Abati, if you give me opportunity. The Nigeria Gas Company and the generating companies that are using gas, the president needs a quality advice. The Nigerian Gas Company is owned by government, NNPC, and they are broke. They have no money because they don't produce the gas. They only harvest gas from the producers, and they need to pay for it in dollars. Even their own share of the joint venture, they need dollar to pay to meet their obligation. So the quality and the quantity of gas that is available to the power plants in Nigeria is very minimal, is very poor. And the generating companies are owned by private and by government. So there is already a problem. The private is running profit and loss account. The government-owned generating company don't have profit and loss. This is where the problem is. So when you are under pressure as a private sector to get quality and volume of gas, the NGC is not under pressure because NGC have no profit and loss. It's a subsidiary of NNPC, the big brother in Abuja who can protect
Mr. Kunle,
So we have a problem in that sector. We have a problem, yeah.
How do you say, well, you know, by age and experience, you can comment on any subject in this country? Okay, comment on the tax reform bills that we seem to have divided the country, and that the president said, well, the time has come for us to move from colonial assumptions to a more modern approach to taxation.
Look, Dr. Abati, at personal level, I have discussed tax reform with some of my very close friends that are holding very important positions in government. And publicly here now, I can say, look, the theoretical framework for the tax reform is beautiful, excellent. It's very beautiful. But in a political setting like Nigeria, where you have had a very long-term I-do governance across Nigeria, except Lagos, Borno, and Niger, I cannot call I-do governors. They have done very well. I'm sorry for the other governors that I may not know their activities in their state of how much economic activities they are generating. I'm very sorry. So it's not a blanket condemnation of them. They are all good people and good friends. But I want them to look at Niger, look at Lagos, and look at Borno very well and copy from them. I think what we are having, the problem we are having, Doctor, is when you look at the fiscal regime running this country, particularly taxation. I mounted taxation workshop in 2002 at Sheraton. The largest contingent that attended that tax reform seminar I did in 2002 at Sheraton, Abuja, was Lagos. This same Lagos, their tax system, President Tinubu has been a person that has been very conscious of tax administration. No society survives without proper tax administration. So the current tax regime that they have framed is very good. It is the mechanics that we are going to have to politically find a way to compromise and do what we call gradualism. I am suggesting this gradualism for a reason, for us to accommodate one another with less friction and less tension. Gradualism means if I'm to take 20% now this year, no, let's take 15 gradually. Next year, I take 20. Next year, until we even out, because you have to balance out. You cannot continue this lopsided arrangement. You have to balance out. There are highly endowed states in this country that don't need actually to depend on VAT. This is the bone of contention. It's just because we are lazy. We are very lazy people. I give you an example, doctor. One state called Niger State, 1 million hectares of land is going to attract $1 billion in the next 1 year in just carbon credit afforestation. They are going to plant tree on the 1 million hectares of land, and they will get $1 billion investment. So why will Niger State government, for example, be battling in Abuja over whether tax reform is favorable or not favorable, when he knows internally on his soil he's going to make more money than to go to Abuja? So please, let us look inward. What President Tinubu is trying to do is to use law and reform to adjust this lopsided arrangement we have been running, and we have been deceiving ourselves. I grew up in Kaduna. I grew up in the north. I have nothing against the north at all. I am a northerner, and I'm not an inferior northerner at all. I qualify anywhere to be called a northerner by political arrangement. Okay, so I don't see why my state, Kogi State, will not take advantage of the huge land there to do what Niger is doing. The same thing with Kwara. So what are the two governors in these two states? What are they doing? That they will be fighting over VAT or no VAT? You understand me, Dr. Abati?
Okay.
Kogi
Yes,
is sitting on
Mr.
huge limestone. So I think the reform, Dr. Abati, I think the reform is necessary. But let us engage some political compromises to manage ourselves. Like the royalty for oil royalty and gas royalty, for example. I don't believe that the tax reform should just capture the royalty collection from the Upstream Regulatory Commission.
Okay,
No,
Mr. Kunle,
it's not,
as we
it's
begin
not
to
too
wrap
good.
up.
So there are issues that need to be
Yeah, we have tried
Please.
to look back at 2024. In another 72 hours or so, we'll be in a new year. What will you say should be the main policy priorities in terms of projections for the Tinubu administration in the year 2025? What policy priorities will you
Dr.
recommend?
Abati, safety and security first. Safety and security across the country. Safety and security is very important. Then thereafter, you need to remobilize for productivity in this country. Productivity is low. That is why people are queuing for food. Productivity is almost zero, doctor. The uncertainty surrounding productivity in Nigeria is the vagaries are too enormous. So nobody can go into the production of anything. The capital cost, the OPEX, the uncertainties. So the president must assemble a group of people that can help him run the country. These 48 ministers he's having today, for me, they are just political footprints across the country. Not more than maybe 10 to 15% of them are very functional and performing and doing value additions in their ministries. So the president cannot say he's satisfied with that. 2025, he needs to jigsaw. He has to jigsaw. He has to shake the system. He has to show more aggressive approach to reform the political economy of this country, particularly production. And this production has to be focused on agriculture. Because look at the roads. The roads are not there. We are not even doing anything about the railway anymore now. Do you hear anything about railway construction anymore? So it's like 2025 is the only year left for President Tinubu to prove a point whether he will really do a very long-term reform. And this is the year also he has to give all the support to the manufacturers in Nigeria. Power is very important. So I think after safety and security, agricultural production, the Ministry of Agriculture must be supported to roll out more fiscal terms that will support agricultural production to make more people to be engaged in production. Otherwise, inflation will remain. Even inflation will even go further because we will be chasing the goods and the commodities that are not available. This is my suggestion for 2025.
Well, on that
it's going to be a testing year for President Tinubu. Yeah.
On that note, I would like to thank you very much.
Sorry, Dr. Abati, we don't have enough time.
I would like to thank you very much
for
joining
giving me
us.
the opportunity.
Thank you very much indeed.